Hi everyone, just waiting on a couple of people to join in before we begin. Alright, so I do see a bunch of you have logged in and okay. Okay, so I'm gonna turn off the comments for now, so to take on question answers a bit later. So welcome everyone and good evening to all of you. My name is Banaisha Kharas Domre and I am a mental health specialist and an image consultant. Today is the first series of Mind Over Matter with me. So I'm very happy to be here on Namami Live, getting in touch with all of you who are interested in wellness, not just wellness that is related to body, but also wellness that is related to your mind. So welcome to all of you, and today's topic is what really stops us from loving ourselves. So let's get started. I have a few tips here that are not really tips exactly to begin with, but to make you kind of aware and thereon give you suggestions on how here can you not sabotage your own self and love yourself better. So the very first and the most important thing about mental health is loving yourself. And that is something in my 9 years of practice that I have made sure that each and every client of mine is aware about. Because mental health is not just when people think you're mental or when you think you are unwell. It is an ongoing process of your self-evaluation, and it is a process of you to be in love with yourself first. And thereafter, all the other permutations and combinations can come your way. All right, so let's begin with the very first point, which stops us from loving ourselves. And that point here would be that we don't spend enough of time with ourselves to know ourselves better. So this is something which you might say that, okay, Banaisha, but how do I not know myself? I've been in this body, in this mind, in this spirit for, X number of years. Now, of course, you might be in all of this. The question really here is that, are you someone who's aware about all these things about you? Now, there are many a times when situations happen in your life, and that's when you kind of understand that, hey, I never knew I'd act like this. I never knew I'd think like this. I never knew I'd be like this. I didn't know that this part of me really existed or prevailed in that format. So know the fact that knowing yourself is very, very important. It's one of the key factors that if you don't know yourself, that stops you from loving yourself. Now, what happens here is that we often say that I know myself and I know how to deal with everything that comes through my emotions. But the quick question here is that how much time do you spend on yourself or with yourself on a daily basis? Due to the lockdown, a lot of you would say that now I spend a lot of time, or I've actually gotten to know a lot of people in my family to a whole new level, etc., etc. But the real thing is to continue this format for the rest of your life. Today, why do people become lonely or feel depressed? Is because they feel that their own self is not good enough, is not sufficient enough. And that is something that I want to change for you here. So when you actually spend a good amount of time with yourself is when you truly understand what works for you and what doesn't. So A suggestion from me to you here is to get to know yourself. How do you do that? You don't have to sit and meditate in silence alone. That is one way of doing it. But if you're not someone who likes that format or it doesn't work for you, what you should do here is take a sheet of paper and make 2 columns. Things that I know about myself and things that I want to know about myself. So things that I know about myself here would be, your qualities, your traits, something that you're good at. Things that you want to know about yourself would be, how would I be if a situation like this happened? And then every day, why not take one of those situations and think about how you would react or respond in it? Now, what happens is that when these situations actually happen to you, you are kind of prepped up. You kind of know how you need to kind of, respond rather than just reacting. The difference between a reaction and response is thought. A response is well thought of, a reaction is not thought of. It's just something that someone just does it instantaneously and usually leads to bad repercussions, right? So the first and important step is to know yourself. And I would start by saying that, start with a piece of paper and a pen and kind of write it down on what really you would like to discover about yourself. Also here it brings me to another thought, that try out new things with yourself that you haven't done before. So say for example, if you were worried about doing this or saying this to somebody or expressing how you feel or trying out a new dish or trying out a new hobby, try it out, because you really don't know what you don't know about yourself, right? So try out these new things and I'm sure it will really help you overcome even your fears in the process. Alright, so moving on to point number 2. We dwell a lot in the past. So I'm sure a lot of you have already brightened up your smiles and said, I do. So we dwell a lot in our past. You, me, the whole world, everyone. Right? Now, I'm trying to get better here though, of course, because, I do know the process of how to go about with it, and here I'm to share with you the same. So we dwell a lot in the past is simply because we feel comfortable because we've been through that situation, and then we feel like, okay, I know how to deal with it, so good or bad, let me just be in there. So for example, if you're conducting a meeting, right, it could be a Zoom meeting nowadays, or it could be a meeting in person. It could be formal or it could be casual. Either way, doesn't matter. You're just with a group of people. Now what happens here is that suddenly somebody gets up and leaves, all right? And or on Zoom call, it would be that somebody just leaves the meeting and goes offline. Now what happens here is that you kind of get shaken up and you're like, why did they leave? Was I not good enough? Am I not nice? Do they not like me? Am I speaking something that they don't like? Right? So what happens here is that you kind of start to tell yourself this very thing in this very moment, that you're not good enough, or it's that no one's liking you and what you're saying is not good, and so on and so forth. So what you're actually doing is you're feeding your mind with things that are assumptions. Now let me tell you a fun thing here. Assumptions. How do you spell assumptions? ASSUME. So assumptions here is making an ass out of you and me. ASSU and me. Got it? So that's a fun way to remember not to assume anything. So make sure that you're not assuming these things in the first place. Now say for example, you've anyway assumed and this thought process has anyway crossed your mind. Let's move on to the next couple of instances that happened to you. Again, you're in the similar situation, right? So you're again conducting a meeting, and again, somebody suddenly doesn't leave but turns off their video camera, or another person kind of just moves in his chair, and you instantly take to that by saying that, okay, just because he moved now he's going to get up and leave, or just because the camera is off now they're going to leave, or they don't like me. So the same record which happened earlier just plays again in your mind. And what happens here is that we lose confidence. So when people come to me and they say that, okay, Panaisha, I want to get confident. How can I, as an outsider, bring confidence within you if you don't know how to feel that confidence within yourself. Therapists like us can here guide you. Counselors like us, we can guide you on how to go about with it. But if you don't take it seriously and if you don't really feel it within your bones, then it's not going to come through, right? So here what you're doing is you're dwelling in the past. Oh, it happened to me before, so it's going to happen to me again. And it could be a whole different bunch of people, but it's still me. There's something wrong with me, and I am the reason that this is happening. And we give ourselves so much grief, we give ourselves so much pain, mental pain on it, a lot of agony goes through it, and we keep on thinking over and over and over again, and we say, I have an overthinking problem. No, you don't have an overthinking problem. What you do is you don't have a detachment sensibility. You need to chop it off. You're assuming a little too much. So stop assumption and remember the as, you and me scenario, right? Because it's not only making you look like a fool, but it's also here tomorrow if you're confronting this person, okay, why did you leave my session? They'll be like, my internet died, or I had an emergency at home, I had to leave. And then you feel like, oh, shit, I should have asked, right? So in such a scenario, always keep in mind that everything does not have to be about you. And sometimes also, even if it does get about you, learn to take a deep breath and say, you know what, maybe I should work on it. And go back to the first point of getting to know yourself better and bettering yourself. So let me tell you something about the past, okay? A lot of people ask me things about detachment, etc. And they kind of bring out this word, the past haunts me. So the past doesn't make it to your future unless you really allow it to do so, right? Or you haven't really acknowledged it. Now, a lot of times what do people do is that if they've had a situation in their past earlier, they kind of put it under the carpet and they don't acknowledge it. This makes the past show up into the future. But if you actually fight your fears and acknowledge this, you will not have the past repeating in your future, right? We often hear a quote saying that there is a reason why your past never made it to the future, because it wasn't supposed to be there. Fair enough. But sometimes we keep on bringing our past into the future is because we are allowing that to happen. If we do not allow that to happen by actually dealing with it head on, or saying that no, this might just be an assumption of me but not actually have happened, then you learn how to detach and cut it off, right? So this was my point number 2. All right, point number 3, it's self-sabotage. So self-sabotage is something that some of us could have heard of, this phrase before, but some of us might not have really thought that we are doing so, right? So say for example, you were in a bad job or a bad relationship, right? Now these are the most 2 precious scenarios of our life, our work and our relationships. Now this does not have to only be a love relationship, it could be any relationship. So what happens here is that you have had a bad experience. Now that bad experience has stayed on and stuck onto you, right? As an adult, today we have to have the ability to rationalize. But sometimes we don't rationalize and we become reactive rather than responsive, like we discussed earlier. Okay, so what usually happens here is that we start to kind of build this wall around us. We build this negativity. Again, we run a tape in our head by saying that, I was useless, I wasn't good enough for the job, I wasn't good enough for the relationship, maybe I'm not that smart, maybe I'm not that pretty, maybe I'm not that handsome, charming, or maybe I'm not that intelligent. And all these things we keep on telling people. I am not this, I am not that. Right? Now say cut to 1 year later or few months later also, right? We actually meet someone who is interested in us. We get offered a job that comes our way directly without us applying. Or somebody starts to show interest and takes care of us better than anyone in our previous experiences have. Our first instinctive thought is, what do they want from me? And why are they being so nice to me, right? So what happens here is that it kind of goes into a defensive mechanism, because we've built a wall around us, saying I am not good enough, so anyway no one's going to enter this place. I'm not that intelligent enough, so no one's going to offer me a job, right? So we built this wall around us. Now that's wrong, because here, this is what I mean by self-sabotaging. We're sabotaging our own our own brighter future, or things that we actually want and things that we actually have desired are finally coming in through our way. So they're finally happening for us. But what really happens here is that we say, no, I don't deserve it, and we push it away. Or I am not worthy about it, or worthy enough for it. I'm not ready for this relationship. I'm not ready for this job. And we again push it away, right? So these are the things that cause us to self-sabotage. So then what happens? Then you kind of start to be like on this pity party of yourself. You start to sulk and you start to say no, this, that, and you make all these facial expressions. And you start landing up being a cribber. And in every conversation you have with people, you sound like a self-sabotager. So all your conversations then say, yeah, but I don't think that's good enough. Yeah, but I don't think this is going to work out. So what are you doing essentially? Not thinking you're good at all for yourself. And thereafter, people start to repulse you. So they say that anyway, this person doesn't see any good in themselves. Let me not break my head over them and let me leave. Right? That's how you lose friends, you lose jobs, you lose acquaintances around, you don't find good opportunities your way, you start to feel dull and depressed. Now all this is caused by you. It is not caused by other people around. It is caused by you. Today people will only help you and only assist you and only be there for you if at all you're willing to cooperate. Now, if you've gone through something bad, people are showing you the way out. But if you're going to be stuck in the past and self-sabotage, then how are you going to move forward? So all these traits don't help us in loving and valuing ourselves. We start to kind of emit this vibe with people that we don't value and we don't love ourselves. And the ones who cannot value and love themselves, they cannot love anybody else in the world. And that is something that I want to tell you this. It could be hard hitting and you'll be like, that's not true. I love so-and-so so much. I love them more than I love myself. No, an empty glass cannot pour. So always remember that people will also love and respect you if you show love and respect to yourself. People will never walk over you if you never walk on your own self. And what I mean by self-sabotaging. So that was point number 3. Okay, so coming to my 4th point, it is to liberate your irrational beliefs. Now, what do I mean by irrational beliefs? Things that you have clearly never rationalized in your life and you feel like, no, this has to happen this way itself, or I need to do it this way, or I must do it. And with everything that's happening around in today's times, and of course the vast exposure we have to social media and people posting up perfect stories and perfect relationships and perfect jobs and the perfect life, actually, with filters and so on and so forth. What really happens here is that we start to run another tape. And that tape here is of an irrational belief, which here states that I must do this. I have to do that. If I don't do this, I'm not good enough. If I don't get, if I don't get X number of likes, I'm not popular. If I don't have X number of followers, I'm not good enough. So understand and know the fact that your value is not based on your valuation. Okay? It is, you are not a good person if you're rich, and you're not a bad person if you're poor. Same way, you're not a popular person if you have more followers. You are not a smarter person if you have more engagement. Anything like that on social media, just making it a little more relative, right? So what we here need to keep in mind is that our irrational beliefs are these stones that are keeping us back from actually moving forward. So imagine this, you are standing, your hands or your feet are tied to a rope and a rock behind you. Now the rope, however long it is, right, it will allow you to move. It will allow you to come forward to a particular limit, and then it will stop. Why? Because that rock is holding you back. So you're saying, let me try so far and then I will see. No. If you go so far, you will have to come that far behind to cut the strings of the rock, right? So it's very important that we rationalize our belief system, because our belief system is the one that stays with us for the rest of our lives. And our belief system, yes, surely do come from our parents, but most of them come through whatever we accept. Whether it's from friends, family, your experiences, all of these things. So don't be too hard on yourself and say that I have to do this and I must do this. Because say for example, if you don't attain this, right, and your expectations aren't met, then you start going into a sad space. Some of them call it depression. Some of them say I'm devastated, I'm shattered. Now all these words are again relative to degree, right? So for some this might be non-shattering, for some this might be very silly, but for you what it is, right? And that's important, and you must respect that feeling too. It is very important to feel that kind of sadness sometimes as well, so that you then know what you can do better, right? So I would say is liberate your irrational beliefs, think about it, and always question that, all right, if this doesn't happen, so what? I lived my life. If somebody breaks up with you and you say, okay, I can't live without them. You lived without them before, right? Yes, you had a beautiful experience and now it's over. Start thinking about recouping yourself. You are all that you have, and which is why it is really, really important to be with yourself, love yourself and respect yourself. Okay? And now we move on to the last point, but not the least point number 5. And that is, remember this, that even if the world does not talk to you well, even if the world does not talk to you well, but you speak to yourself well, you will be a happy, happy, happy person, right? It's not about the outside that matters, it's about the inside that makes you who you are today. And this is not a philosophical sentence, it is true. Today, when you're sitting alone by yourself, if you know what you're truly capable about, your dreams are achieved, right? You become a happy magnet to people, because if you are smiling and you are happy and you're content and fulfilled with yourself, only then can you see good in others. On the reversal, say if the world talks to you very well, right? Everyone's giving you good vibes, everyone's giving you good, accolades or anything of that sort, but you don't talk to yourself and you become a self-sabotager, you will always remain unhappy. And let me tell you, after a point of time, people will walk away, because no one wants to be with unhappy people. No one wants to always be in that cribbing zone. People will help you once, twice, even 10 times. But after the 10th time, they will pack their bags and leave, because you are not cooperating with them. So know the fact that when you want assistance and when you want help from people to uplift yourself, you must also push a little harder. When you fall down to the ground, what really happens? You can't rise up yourself. Fair enough. What do? You put your hands up asking for help, like please help me. People come and help you. But then what do? They also say push, right? You too have to do the same. You have to push a little bit. Right? They will take the big chunk of it possibly, but your push will just get them more strength. So what you say to yourself matters the most, and all of these points do stop us from loving and valuing ourselves. So I hope that I have brought you some insight into this segment, and now I'm ready to take on a couple of questions from all of you. Okay. All right. Okay, some of you have said I have a question. Well, I would urge you all to put it in the question box below, which has a question mark, right? So please put in your questions here so that I may see it on my screen and read it through. So how to keep positive during tough times, no matter how we try hard to be positive. So what happens here is that positivity is something, again, which a lot of people feel that you just need to keep on saying good things to yourself, but that's not how it works. Positivity is something that you again have to rationalize, right? So there is a bad situation that's currently happening, but what you have to do is think about it. All right, say for example, if I was in this situation, how is the best way that I can deal with it? And that's how you look at it positively, rather than look at it superficially positively by saying, oh, don't worry, everything is going to happen. So that's not being positive, that's just being way too optimistic, out of your league. You have to also rationalize while being positive. Now, again, this is a process that kind of is done through daily practice. So it will come slowly and steadily. It's not something by only saying, I am positive today, I am positive today, but then something happens and, a glass by your house help breaks and you're like shouting at them. No, that action is not positive. You can say, no problem that it's happened. However, let's clean it and make sure next time you're not doing it. So you have to have a positive attitude overall and not just positive thoughts that only lie in your head. All right? Okay. So moving on to the next one. What one must do to regularly for oneself in spirituality. So I think spirituality is something which is again very personal. So for me, I do my meditation, and again, if I can't do the whole meditation and I'm a bit distracted or I'm a bit uneasy, I kind of stop to how much I can. So again, don't be too hard on yourself and take things slowly and steadily. So first and most important thing is talking well to yourself. That is something that I would definitely urge you to start doing. All right. Okay. Someone's asked, are monsoon blues for real? Well, think about it this way. There are people who actually enjoy the monsoons. So it is blue for you, but it could be yellow for somebody else, which is bright and spunkful. So monsoon blues sometimes could be gloomy because they kind of give you a very dullish feel when you're used to having the sun out at a particular time. So again, it's very psychological. If we tune ourselves to say that, it's just rain, it's benefiting the crops that I'm going to be eating at some point of time in this month, then you might just not feel so blue. But of course, if there is something that's bothering you and then it starts raining, that has nothing to do with the rain. It has something to do with what you were feeling about a thing earlier. Okay. All right. Someone's asking about how to cope with a narcissistic person. So how do you cope with someone who is narcissistic? So to give you a quick response, because this is something that would kind of require a lot more time, but if you feel that this person is behaving like this for a very long time, you can actually talk to them about it and understand why are they actually saying or doing or emitting this kind of action and attitude. Because what happens is that when you're interacting with this person, you become repulsive. So again, here they could have certain insecurities which their narcissism is kind of facading. So again, talking to a narcissist sometimes can be through like dealing with a wall, but if they are your close friend or family member, it's always good to have a conversation, because I believe the first step to solving any problem is through talk. So yeah. All right. Do you have any specific morning routines to be positive? So what I do is when I wake up, before I put my feet on the ground, I actually quickly say like a thank you prayer. And this is not from any scripture, it's just to say thank you for everything that has happened and thank you for this beautiful day, which gives you a gratitude and a sense of belonging and a sense of respect to yourself and to the nature around you, and to the divine that says that I'm grateful for being here, because many people don't wake up, right? So that's one gratitude thing that I do. And thereafter I listen to a few happy songs, and I do my meditation, and after that I'm pretty much on my day. And what I do is I say 5 good things to myself every day, and they could be anything about myself, they could be anything that has happened in the past days that I've done good at, or I congratulate myself for smaller victories, like, yeah, Panasha, you didn't do this. So that was a good thing because you didn't do this, or you responded to this person instead of reacting, which is a good thing. So motivate yourself all throughout and talk to yourself. We've all forgotten that we all used to talk to our toys, and I feel like that made us so innocent, so loving, so kind with the entire world, and we just forgot all of that to do with ourselves. So think that you're kind of not, I won't say that you're a toy, but think of that relation and kind of get it back. All right, so just the last couple of questions. Okay, how do I motivate myself? This is something that I've already spoken about. What if somebody constantly tries to put you down? So when somebody tries to put you down constantly, you need to first understand what exactly are they saying to put you down. Are they talking about specific mannerisms about yourself? Are they specifically talking about certain habits? Are they talking about certain things that you are doing which could be bothering them? Here then you need to kind of look inward. What do I mean by that is you would actually have to see, are these habits things that you need to change for yourself? Because if it's your mom or your dad telling you this, maybe you want to work on it. Or if it's your spouse telling you, maybe you definitely want to work on it. So I feel that it again depends on what are these things that people are putting you down. The other thing is, if they're outsiders apart from your family, people that are putting you down, again evaluate what they are saying. But if you are thinking that they are putting you down when they're actually just making a comment or something, then you might need to stop assuming, right? But if it's not an assumption, then you might want to reevaluate yourself. All right. Okay. In some cases, people build up confidence without clarity. Can you talk about that? All right. So I'm not very clear on what your clarity question is, but from what I have understood is, so yeah, some people fake it till they make it. I'm not asking you to fake it till you make it. I am simply asking you to, know yourself better in order for you to exude that confidence. Because today there are lots of people who just fake it till they make it and then they collapse, right? So it's very important that you know your attributes, you know what you are saying and doing. So in order for something, when it snowballs at you, you know how to respond to the situation. So clarity is very important, and that was my first point today. Clarity about yourself, about your attributes, about your shortcomings is a very important point. Someone's asked about food. I just missed that question. Right. Okay. How is physical and mental wellness connected, or is it not? So physical and mental, answer yourself. It's all connected. Your mind controls your entire body, and what your mind controls is what you feed it to control, right? It's like when you were a child, what you were fed in is what you processed. What you were taught in school is what you processed. And then you have commanded that to the rest of your body to action out. So they both are very important. And someone even asked me about what we eat. Is it very important for our mental health? Yes, I mean, if you keep on eating like junk, you're really not providing nutrition to the rest of your body. So you kind of then have different things like fatigue and sluggishness and a whole bunch of other things which aren't really fruitful for your body. And that's how your mind also starts to then deteriorate, and you don't become sharp, you kind of become very lethargic. So it's also really important what you eat. All right. I think I've answered most of them because some of them are repetitive as well. How should one guide a 50-year-old lady to be social, as she has been very busy taking care of her family? Now, again, here, what your question might be here is, how does she actually put herself first, right? So how do you put yourself first is you go back to your 25-year-old self or 18-year-old self where you wanted to do everything and conquer the world, right? Now what happens here is that if at all we change that mindset that I am now I've given all these years to my family and I've sacrificed. Don't use the word sacrifice, because you had this family out of your own choice. So when a lot of people start to say, I've sacrificed for my children, I've done all these things, you are insulting two things: your children and your inability to actually make a decision. Are you trying to say that you did not want this? Are you trying to say that you weren't happy at all in your life? So avoid using these words, because you are feeding your mind the wrong information. You are feeding your mind information like I've sacrificed, which means I didn't get to do anything. Fair enough, sometimes you might not have got to do it. Maybe for some of you, all the time you might have not got to do it. Okay, not a problem. You still went through it. It's a choice. It's all a choice that you did. You either didn't stand up by saying I didn't want to do it, but you went along with the flow. Now circumstances could have been various and otherwise. Not a problem. But today you have that choice. So stand up and actually go out there and do things that make you happy. So I would say start with the first process or the first step, which is to get to know yourself better. Okay, so I'm just gonna answer one more question and I think we're good to go. Some of you, actually a couple of you have asked, will this be saved? Yes, most definitely this will be saved as an IGTV for you all to kind of go back. And yes, so I think most and all the questions, I've kind of summarized 2-3 questions together because I read it at a glance, and I hope this has been I hope this has been fruitful for everyone out here. So yes, thank you very much for tuning in, and see you on another Monday with another topic. And thank you for tuning in today. Take care and see you. Bye.